So this was a story that I thought was worth doing, and shout out also to Block Club Chicago and several other media outlets for reporting this too. So there's a guy named Tyrone Muhammad, who some of you guys may have heard of. He's a like an activist here in Chicago, and he runs an organization of ex-cons that basically help out the community. And one big issue that we've been having in the city, citywide really this year, is safety on the train, on the CTA, especially on the red line. And that one is kind of surprising to me because typically, when I've given advice, I've said, the lines to really avoid are the green line out west and also parts of the blue line out west. But this year, it seems like the red line has been the most dangerous line. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but a lot of people have been voicing their concern about this. Some people have stopped riding the train altogether. And this is an issue that affects all corners of the city, not just the typically high crime areas. The CTA, the L, that's like, it gives access to the entire city, every corner of it, and north side, downtown. I mean, even high-end areas. There's been robberies, assaults, all type of crimes on the CTA. And, a lot of people are basically like saying that, it's so dangerous now that a lot of them don't even ride it anymore. Well, this guy, Tyrone Muhammad, got together a group of these ex-cons, a group of black men, most of whom I think are from out south. Shout out to the south side for this, to come together and protect the people at the CTA and basically act as a security force, as a neighborhood security force on some of the most high crime stops along the CTA on the red line. And I'm really, putting this out there because I feel like he should be getting more funding for this from like the people, because he's doing it, as a group of black men protecting a lot of the stops that are, stationed in the black community. But it's not just black people that ride the CTA, everybody does. So he's really helping all of us. And not just him, but everybody else that's doing this with him. So Block Club is reporting that violence prevention groups can be more effective with the right support. According to Tyrone Muhammad, he said they should see us as a logical next step to fix the problem that is the violence on our public transportation. And see, public transportation is how a lot of people without cars get to work. And some of these people have, are even people with money. Like there's people that have a lot of money that still choose not to keep a car in the city just because it's too much of a headache. And so they're taking the CT. I mean, this affects every walk of life. So this is being reported from the Chatham neighborhood. They said neighbors have been calling Tyrone Muhammad for weeks, asking him to mobilize his violence prevention group to help guard CTA trains amid violence and unruly behavior. So, he was basically saying, the black men, they're coming together to protect their community. So they have red and black bomber jackets. That's what they typically wear. And the name of the organization is Ex-Cons for Community and Social Change. And they were patrolling red line stations and trains for a week in October to reassure riders, deter trouble, and intervene to mitigate conflict. So I had reported on something like this a few years back about the Guardian Angels, and I think most of those guys were Hispanic, and they were guarding some of the north side stops and some of the downtown stops. But this guy has a group of black guys that are doing this out south, and this really shows that, the community can come together sometime, to protect itself. And videos of dozens of men from Muhammad's CTA community support team posted up at the 87th Street Red Line station, and it went viral on social media. And a lot of people were, sending out appreciative comments. So one person said, when I reached out to a few people to talk about what was going on with the CTA and figuring out how we get back public safety on the trains, I said, you know what? We're going to do it ourselves. That's according to Tyrone Muhammad. He said, it became like, okay, I'm going to show the city how this is supposed to look. So one woman posted on Twitter, she said, black men serving and protecting the community in Chicago. They do this and a lot more. Ex-cons for community and social change. And, a lot of people were showing their support for this. So the patrols were temporary. He used donations to pay for them, and they were created on the fly to support neighbors that wanted active change, and the group made it happen. So the organizer is willing to continue that work long term, but he would need city or state funding to help. I feel like we should be funding this because safety on the CTA is something that economically affects the city. People, they travel to businesses, restaurants, on the CTA. If they're afraid to take the CTA, that's hurting the revenue of businesses all over the city. People don't want to travel to their business because they don't have a car and they're afraid to get robbed or mugged or assaulted or even raped or whatever on the CTA. That's harming everybody's pockets in the city. So it's worth it. To me, it's like a cost benefit analysis. It's worth it to pay these guys to do this. and anybody else like them who's effective in doing it, which these guys are effective. So he said they hire us to do violence prevention, but they don't give us the resources to be the leaders. We're good enough to work the streets, but we can't be leaders of the very thing that they want to reduce. So CTA employees are also frustrated and frightened. Attacks on CTA operators are on the rise, and crime on trains more than doubled in 2020 compared to 2019. And, it was already bad in 2019, and it doubled in 2020. So in response, the CTA has boosted the number of unarmed security guards at its stations, and they got deals right now with 4 private security firms. But these all cost money, of course. And in August, the CTA president, whose name is Dorval Carter, he announced the agency would bring back its canine security teams in a $30 million contract to monitor trains and platforms. But riders and even security guards have questioned if the agency's strategy is making public transportation safer. Dogs and hired security guards, they said, don't have a cultural affinity or connection to the community, according to Muhammad. So what he's saying is that, like, these black guys that are from the hood over there and, know a lot of people in the community, they can be more effective deterrents. So, and he said with more funding, his group could hire men to guard the stations, buy cameras, and own cars dedicated to the cause. So basically making them like a private security firm that's from the community itself. So he said, why not try to do something as simple and affordable as using us? You'll spend $30 million on the dogs when you can spend $5 million a year, and we can create a CTA community support team. So basically for 1/6 the cost, he's willing to get this done. Now, what kind of manpower they have as far as total numbers, I don't know. So the community safety team's red and black bomber jackets and, the colors that they use was basically Muhammad was using that to look unified, stylish, and vibrant enough to attract the attention of commuters, but not so much to stand out. So the jackets are similar to those Guardian Angels and the ones that they wear. And he said, I think public safety should have a style to it as well. We're organized and serious about public safety and visibility, but we do it with a little character and style. We live for this type of stuff. We're an organization that lives to confront violence and change the behavior of our youth. Other people might see it as a job. We see it as a lifestyle. So he's been criticized recently for his political views and engagement. He was seen with Republican gubernatorial candidate Darren Bailey, and he said that his organization tries to be at every political rally for both parties. And he acknowledged being at events where politicians and other organizers have criticized the Safety Act. So the Safety Act, that's what people were referring to as the Purge Law, where they're going to do away with cash bail and all that kind of thing. And so viral posts about the Safety Act promoted by candidates such as Bailey inaccurately claimed that the law would create non-detainable offenses. So that's according to Block Club Chicago. But among other criminal justice reforms, they said the law eliminates cash bail as a standard for Illinois' judicial system. So he said that his views represent those of his organization, and he isn't concerned about how his political actions may impact whether his group gets city or state funding to expand their violence prevention work. So he's not, tripping about that. He said, I'm not caught up about what anybody thinks about me. They weren't thinking about me when I was doing 21 years in prison. Why should I care now? Very true. Very, very, very true. So what his political views are, I don't know. I haven't actually seen anything about, whether he takes one side or another. But I'll say this. A lot of the black men in Chicago, especially a lot of the older ones, they may not be Republicans, but their views, if you ask them their views on social issues, they're typically very conservative. Like the LGBTQ movement and stuff like that, they're typically not really down with that. Most of them are anti-abortion. They're pro nuclear family, feminism. They're not crazy about that. They're socially, they line up typically with conservatives. The only reason for most of them that they will cite that they don't actually align themselves with that party is that too many white supremacists are voting Republican and they're under that umbrella. But as far as their positions on a lot of these issues, a lot of them are the same. At any rate, man, so shout out to Tyrone Muhammad and all the guys who are doing this. I'm putting up some of their pictures here. Shout out to all these guys doing a lot of good work, coming together to protect the community. And, hopefully they'll get the resources from the city that they need, because this would help the city out a lot. Everybody, white, black, brown, Asians, everybody in the city can benefit from having a safer trip on the CTA. And I personally feel a lot safer with these guys than without these guys standing on that platform. I walk up on a platform and these guys are there, I'm not thinking I'm going to get robbed that day. No. If anybody makes a move with these guys there, they're outnumbered. There's too many of these guys, So this kind of reminds me of something that happened in New Orleans. There was a high school where, they were having a lot of problems with fights and violence. And a bunch of the dads came together and, asked the school if they could just, act basically as security in the hallways. And the violence instantly stopped at the school when these dads came into the hallways and started doing this themselves. You know what I'm saying? So this was the purpose that a lot of gangs were supposed to have, protecting the community. But then the gangs eventually turned on the community and started preying on their own. And now you need guys like this, which are not a gang, but, a group of activists that maybe at one point, had been convicted of crimes, but now, are on a different path and, protecting the people that basically all of us live and work with, our friends, our family, everybody. So shout out to these guys, man. We all owe them, to get this funding. And it'll help us out really more than them, even because, with the safety on that train that most of us at some point take. Your boy, when you see the report, I'm out.